I'm Jordan Van Biert, Artistic Director of Chronos Vocal Ensemble here in Edmonton, and I'm joining you from my living room. This fall was a bit of hurry up and wait for us at first, as we waited for and then got guidance from Alberta Health that would allow for singing in groups and what precautions we would be expected to take. We had made some plans based on research that had come out in the summer that we hoped that the guidance from Alberta would fall in line with, and it did in large part. And so we were able to hit the ground running with rehearsals, with careful precautions, especially wearing masks while singing, lots of distance between the singers, and very short bits of rehearsal interspersed with time for the room to ventilate. The period of time this fall where we could sing in person before new restrictions came in was about 2 months. And we did quite a lot in that period of time. We rehearsed every week or two, mostly on weekends. We were able to do 2 outdoor performances before the weather turned. We were able to rehearse in person for 2 projects that ultimately had a digital outcome, a virtual choir release, but to work on that music in person together, which was really great, and I think added to those projects quite a lot. And we were able to make 1 live recording in rehearsal, which was very exciting and important to us. Besides all that, we prepared for some performing we hope to be able to do in 2021. And we were able to do a lot of experimenting, rehearsing in shorter frames of time, rehearsing further apart, rehearsing in different acoustics, rehearsing with some of our members who needed to be isolating, watching from home via live stream, having some of our rehearsals entirely via live stream and just verbally reviewing scores and me taking questions from the singers and so forth. So it's been a good time of experimentation, and we're excited for the opportunity to resume singing, we hope, not too far into 2021. And now we've got a good idea how we make it work. And hopefully before long, we're performing for an audience in real time. And hopefully before too long, we're performing for an audience live and in the flesh. And that will be very special, of course. Singing in masks is quite a bit different. And it's something we've had to get used to and also experiment with, like everything else. Definitely, it's harder to get the diction through the mask, to get the sound to project the same way. And it's also harder to hear one another, which is so important in the collaborative aspect of choral singing at a high level. That's, of course, magnified by the fact that we're standing so far apart. So the main challenge that we have been able to tackle to a great degree is in the sense of the mask interfering with the operation of the lips and jaw, and also getting sucked back into the mouth when we breathe quickly the way we need to, often between phrases when singing. And that's through the use of singer's masks, which help to hold the fabric of the mask a little bit away from the lips and the jaw and allows more freedom of movement. And we've had a set of custom masks made for the choir that help to do this. They do still muffle the sound a little bit, and in terms of volume, perhaps even to a greater degree than a simpler disposable mask. But they do seem to be easier to do the mechanics of singing in for a longer time for the choir. So each of my choirs has had to deal with also the fact that the acoustic of the room in which we sing has a big effect on how we sing and how we hear one another. And we've found that having to sing wearing masks and having to sing much further apart from one another, it's better to be in a space that's not too much larger than what we need to make sure we can exercise the appropriate distancing, but not too much larger than that, and yet has a vibrant acoustic with lots of early reflections, so hard surfaces that throw our sound back at us and at each other, especially if we've got to be spread across an entire room. We found a great space in the sanctuary at St. Timothy's Anglican Church for Chronos. They've been so good to us this fall, and we've been able to rehearse in lots of different configurations in that space and experiment with how we hear differently depending on the configuration. In October, we released first virtual choir project of the fall since our really well-received project that we did this spring. That was a piece by Ēriks Ešenvalds called Only in Sleep. We were able to feature Ellie Salvalaggio as our soprano soloist. Working with Legacy Films, we made basically a music video of this piece, including the usual grid of heads one sees with virtual choir, but also lots of interesting ways of featuring Ellie as our soloist. In November, we released the first component of what will be a larger two-part multimedia work, working with Canadian composer Matthew Emery. This was a premiere, and a premiere released digitally. This work is called Breathe, and it's a unique project with a special supporter, David Almond, a friend of the choir whose mother unfortunately passed away from COVID earlier this spring. And he was inspired to want to create something around that. Folks can see lots more about that on our website and on our campaign page, where we're raising the funds to see that project through to its fruition. We've been able to relaunch our annual composition competition. There was a period of time where we weren't sure financially if that would be viable for 2020, and I'm so glad to say that it is. That deadline is December 31st of 2020. And toward the end of the fall here, now that lockdown has resumed, I've been focused on finding and releasing some concert videos from last season and earlier. We'll be releasing some audio coming up from our tour. And most recently, we've released the one live recording we were able to make this fall in early November, a recording in St. Timothy's Anglican Church of the Ešenvalds piece, There Will Come Soft Rains. This was the second piece that would have appeared on our spring concert, which we canceled, and which we've been able nonetheless to be able to perform for our audience in one way or another. So we're grateful for that. Of course, we love to sing, and being able to just do it at all after such a long time off beginning this fall was incredible. But to sing for an audience is something else entirely. And when we perform for an audience in the room, they are that critical reflection in a way of what we do. And it's a two-way interaction. Although we discourage certain kinds of real-time interactions from audience members, most of the time, we definitely feed off the feeling of energy in the room and the enthusiasm of the audience. And we can't wait to be doing that again. I think it may be some months from now before the biggest takeaways from this time are clear. It's hit closer to home, just how easy it is to take this thing for granted that we love to do, how much we rely on that closeness and those unverbalized, real-time collaborative decisions that are such an important component of doing this well, doing this art form of choral music, and especially a cappella music. There's also been more time to think and plan and to try to conceptualize the types of things we'll be interested to do in the future. There's been lots of opportunity to find ways to use technology, and in order to overcome, in the short term, some of our restricted ability to do some of the usual things, but in the long term that will have benefits as well. I look forward to seeing how that's going to impact our a whole way of doing things into the future.